From the same animation team that brought us Piggy Builders, Buddy Bot, Lupin's Tales, and Zig and Sharko comes one of the goriest animated series of the year, Twilight of the Gods. It takes MCU's favorite brother-frenemy duo, which Marvel has spent 15 years humanizing and maturing, and said, let's make Thor a bloodthirsty, giant-hating wedding crasher. Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. The Bride Price is the title of this 30-minute pilot. What kicks off as a gory battlefield meet-cute between warriors Leif and Sigrid ends with another red wedding, this time scored by Hans Zimmer. Has Invincible changed the precedent? Because it feels like with every gory cartoon that we get nowadays, it always ends in tragedy in the first episode.
I think, actually, if Castlevania hadn't come out on Netflix, we wouldn't be getting this. Or partially shows like Love, Death, and Robots, or something that like decides to show a lot of the violence and the sex.
You are aware that Zack Snyder signed that huge, massive deal with Netflix a few years ago. They got the Army series. He also has the Rebel Moon series.
I had a couple questions about that going into this. How many franchises is he trying to helm? Because he has Army of the Dead, he has Rebel Moon, as you mentioned, and then he's trying to do 300. He's trying to do a follow-up film to that.
Well, I think with Netflix's deal, he can just do whatever he wants. So that's why I'm saying, I'm pushing back on you saying that Castlevania caused this, and I'm saying Zack Snyder caused this.
I'm just saying Castlevania because I remember that was kind of a big show to come out and was like the first adult animated series I remember with Netflix.
So what actually happened was that the Netflix executive called up Jay Oliva, and he said, what do you know about mythology? I think he was working on a series called Treese at the time. And he said, hey, I'm going to pitch you right now on this series. And then they team up with Zack Snyder and Master of Subtlety, Zack Snyder, and also Eric Carrasco, who is the head writer for this series. He's done a lot of comic books in the past too. But Jay Oliva has done almost every WB DC animated project that you can think of over the last 30 years. So all together, their minds created this new version of Norse mythology. And I find it funny because you have Netflix coming out with Chaos, which was all about Greek mythology, all about Zeus freaking out because it's the end of days. And in Twilight of the Gods, that's actually synonymous with Ragnarok, which is that catastrophic event,
of course,
where all the gods are about to die and get reborn and stuff like that.
It seems like Zack Snyder, he's trying to head into animation, though, because he was supposed to come out with that Army of the Dead Las Vegas TV series movie that was supposed to be animated, right?
Yeah.
But it seemed like that was an avenue for that. Also, this show feels like the blood and goriness of Hitmonkey on steroids, kind of trying to replicate the seriousness of Arcane and Unicorn.
But Hitmonkey was another Invincible situation where at the end of it, his entire family gets slaughtered, right? So I'm saying, is Invincible just caused every violent series to need to do that? Like, introduce us to a bunch of happy characters. In this case, it was Sigrid's family of giants. And Thor, I didn't know in mythology, just hates giants. I guess they're too closely related to gods. And so he sees them as some form. And Loki is also half giant in mythology.
So is Thor villainous?
You have to ask.
A good character? I mean, like, definitely after you see this, but it's just, that was one of the things I liked most about the show, because as we've already mentioned, Marvel, it's like you always see Thor as this good character, but it's almost like a Brightburn situation here, where it's like Thor, he's the evil version, and you get to see him use his lightning powers and just kill basically everything in sight.
Well, we have seen him do that in the MCU where he's just attacking monsters. But I agree. This is like a roided out version. He flips on a dime so quickly from where's Loki to I'll just kill you all because you guys are in my way.
Well, he also has Balder kind of to his side, almost being the conscience of him.
Balder is like the god of, he's supposed to be just this beautiful like sunlight god.
That's God of light and forgiveness, right?
That's why they have him like presented in that metallic gold form. He's not participating. He's still complicit. And I think that they're trying to say, oh, look, he's a good guy because he didn't rat out that Sigrid and her husband were able to survive the attack.
He tells Thor that there are no survivors.
But this motherfucker, he could have easily stepped in and stopped his brother a little bit earlier, I feel like, or tried to help the kids at least. When Thor blew up the kids, I feel like that was a step too far. But for a refresher, Loki was actually adopted, even though they're considered brothers. He isn't the son of Odin.
Right, they make the joke, I remember, in the Avengers film.
Right. And so Thor has a lot of like half siblings out there, but Loki is not like blood related, even though they're considered blood brothers. Also, as I said, he's half giant. Sigrid is half giant, so I think there's a connection there. That's why
Of course,
Loki
yeah.
ends up teaming up with Sigrid at the end to help her get revenge, and also because he just likes
Well,
to
we
mess
should
with Thor.
mention the reason that they're mad is because a human is marrying a giant, and that's basically frowned upon. And they knew that, but the giants wanted to piss off the gods, so that's a reason why they were getting married as well.
I don't know if that's why Thor stepped down. I think Thor was just there to find Loki. I think Loki was just running around as a lizard. I really don't think that the gods cared one way or the other.
I really liked Loki being the lizard. You
Okay.
being able to see, you knew that something was up with it because
They kept showing you the lizard.
Yeah,
and it had the eyeballs.
They made a specific, like, they would make it obvious whenever it was in the scene. But I like the animation of it, and I'm wondering how Loki is really going to help Sigrid now that this.
Well,
huge
Sigrid,
thing's taking
he
place.
brought her down into like the underworld, and not Hades, or what's the version for Norse mythology? I forget. But he didn't. He just has her drinking Thor's blood or something so that she can get stronger.
Yep.
He's a half giant. She's a half giant. Hagrid's a half giant. Hagrid would fit in well in this series. Okay, let's jump back to the start of the actual episode, though, because you have Leif, who's the other main character, her husband. He's a warrior king of Völsungland. He's in the middle of a battle, and he's explaining how he met his girlfriend.
Right. So Sigrid jumps in a half giant with a huge sword and ends up saving his life. And
She's said to be a half giant, but really she just is the same size as a regular human. She just has superhuman strength. Visionary Zack Snyder is no stranger to bloodshed, but did you find it at all silly within the first minutes that we were seeing blood and boobs?
No, I wasn't actually surprised is really the thing. I was not surprised at all.
I found it silly. The fact that, like, not only are we just getting a massive amount of gore just on the battlefield, but then he somehow finds a way to bring in nudity. Like that Valkyrie just jumping from the sky. And yes, Valkyrie are naked and they wear the prop hats and stuff like that. But then she sticks her freaking finger into Sigrid's mouth.
That was gross. With the adult animation, or with I guess that tag now, with any type of show, you kind of have to expect this.
You know what you're getting?
Yes.
Slow motion. That they did do slow motion, which I found funny because it's, again, cartoon. Why you don't really have to. Destruction, 4x4 picture frames, weird version of pop songs in the background. 300
Right.
did it. Justice League did it.
It had a weird type of like 3D animation, Blue Eye Samurai mixed with Captain Fall mixed with Agent Elvis.
Well, I wasn't kidding when I said that the people responsible have also done all that other stuff. Buddy Bot, Piggy Builders. So they did bring in a special animation team to do this. Do you have a favorite Zack Snyder film?
Probably Dawn of the Dead, if I had to choose one.
So not Sucker Punch, not Watchmen, not Justice League or 300.
I never saw any of them except for Justice League, and definitely Dawn of the Dead is better than Justice League. What about you? Do you?
Sucker Punch, when it came out, it felt different enough where I gave it more of a benefit of the doubt. But he's actually trying to return to that. He wants to do a director's cut because he does a director's cut of everything.
That's of Sucker Punch? That was like 10 years ago, though.
Right. He just never got a chance to do that one, so he wants to go back. So we meet the Valkyrie. She decides who lives and who dies. That's they're winged, they're helmeted, naked. It's just not the fact that she stuck the finger into Sigrid's mouth and they were like, she bowed to her. Like this was a sign of respect and then put the finger into her mouth and sucked it. It's just how the sex is so awkward and the intimacy in this show in general is unsettling.
It did feel like it was thrown in there because you don't really get a sense of that after the beginning scene or after like those first 5 minutes. It just goes back to story. Really didn't add a purpose.
I feel like they were checking the Zack Snyder box. Like, I need to put as much sex as I can in here, even if it doesn't make sense. Like this is getting into my root problem with the show, is that he tells this story about how he met his wife and how fate intervened. And then they arrive and he meets his wife at the dock and everybody's looking at her and she's like, what's up with this? Why is everybody paying attention to me? And then they're like, we just heard the amazing story about you. And then she's like, actually, my husband has a big dick. And like that was her response to that. And then he was like, I've got somewhere to show you. And then she was like, great. And so they go and then immediately just start having sex. And so I don't know. There wasn't a lot of depth there. There's not a lot of subtlety. You talk about Blue-Eyed Samurai. There's a lot going on. You're watching the backstory and you're kind of like falling into the character mentality of like what they were going through. In this, it's just like you're
When
watching
it
things
comes when
happen.
it comes to the dialogue, I do admit it could have been a lot better. Some characters take 10 words as opposed to just one when they're saying things. It seems like
That's
it's
me.
trying
I do that in life.
but it seems like it's also trying to kind of replicate the Game of Thrones like old time sayings, but then you get lines like the ones that you were just talking about. So I think that definitely the dialogue is probably one of the worst things of the show. It just
Lines
utterly
like
failed.
where again she mentions the big dick, and then later on, only 30 minutes, you have the grandma talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how big's
Yeah.
your husband's dong? Like,
It's
it doesn't.
very, very repetitive. I felt like the show could have done a lot more with the 30 minutes that it had.
The pacing though is really quick because they go from him explaining how he met her, and then they're off on a journey to meet her family. That journey goes
Right.
like 2 seconds, and then he's in the land of giants, and he's having to defend his proposal.
But he's not even really having to defend it. It seems like the Giants were kind of on board the whole time, which is not something that you
I think
usually
it was.
see.
I give it a break for that, because it seems like when anybody would be trying to ask their hands in marriage, their daughter's hand in marriage, they're going to give you a little pushback, even if they're for
No,
it.
it was very believable though, because he has the treasure. He's also giving
It's a
them
bride price.
the sword. Yeah, the
So
sword.
there's the
as marriage
dowries, which
token.
is when the daughter's family has stuff to give the husband along with the girl, or there's the bride price where you pay for, and that still exists in parts of the world. I think it's still really big in China, actually. I looked up a few interesting cases of it. Someone pretty recently said that their bride price for their daughter was that the person had to rack up 1 million likes on Facebook.
That was the
Because
bride
they were kind of
price.
going against the grain. They didn't want money.
Were
There's
they like an
place-
influencer?
No. I'm saying that's what the dad said. He's like, if you are able to love my daughter enough and you find a way to get 1 million likes on Facebook.
Why would that be the price that the dad wants out of everyone?
Like I said, he was going against the idea of just getting a ton of money, because it had become kind of a competitive thing where in this billionaire sphere in China, like they were literally paying millions upon millions to marry some women. And now you have a bunch of women moving to China for that. No. Yeah, so he takes his sword kind of from like King Arthur style. He pulls it from a rock. He gifts that. He also gives them a ton of treasure and seeds for food.
Right.
And then they're all very happy with that. And they say, you can marry her. And then they all get drunk together, right? And they have this big ceremony.
They're about to have the marriage celebration, yes.
Am I the only one who realized that like the perspective on the giants consistently changed in the most annoying fashion, where sometimes the humans were just half the size of a giant, and then other times they were like a human standing next to the Statue of Liberty.
Now that you mention it, I do see that. Yeah. Because it seemed like like same size until suddenly they're putting him on a table and he's having to drink from that giant keg of beer.
Or
and
she's jumping up into one of their arms, or when they're like at the ceremony, they look kind of like closely in size, but it's strange. I don't think they got the perspective 100% down. At the actual ceremony, that's where shit hits the fan. Thor shows up looking for Loki. He calls him a cocksucker. Again, Zack Snyder subtlety right there. Did you know that Thor was Thor immediately?
No,
You just thought he was a random guy
had to
with a
hear the
beard.
name before I was like, oh, okay, that's who they're going to be, I guess, casting as the villain for this thing. But it had that. I really enjoyed the massacre scene. I enjoyed the goriness. It had the constant action.
The ending does make up a little bit for the boringness of other scenes, or the awkwardness of the sex scenes. Theon's uncle, Euron Greyjoy, actually plays
I
the
didn't
voice
even know
of
that.
Thor. Yes.
I thought he did a good job. I thought the voice acting, the only voice acting that I felt was a little off, and maybe it is a problem with the show, is Sigrid. I felt like
she speaks 3 languages in real life. She's from Blade Runner 43.
I felt like her voice didn't fit the character. Maybe I was the only one to feel that way. It also felt like they were trying to kind of be Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, with the soundtrack in the background being a lot
Hans
of strings.
Zimmer? You're gonna go after Hans Zimmer now?
No, I'm saying that I actually like that. That's one of the things I enjoyed about it.
Okay.
But also, I think that it had the same quality of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, where just overall the series was kind of boring. I didn't see a reason for it to necessarily be made.
Well, this was all set up for her vengeance that is clearly going to happen. She's going to kill one of the gods. Same concept of Christian Bale in the Thor movie there. He wants to go kill all the gods. The wedding party does not go well. everybody's dead, disproportionate show of power, I would say.
Yes.
Is putting it lightly.
Yeah.
As far as what Thor does. Leif and Sigrid survive, and because Baldur doesn't say anything, they kind of zap away. The gods zap away, and that's when the giant red bloody hands pull Sigrid through the earth.
Yeah, so she isn't even actually like jumping into any portal. It's like Loki is taking her down just automatically, sucking her down to hell, or hell's door, I think he calls it, or something.
Yeah. My question is, when he's like, you got to acquire this taste for blood, drink deep, and you're seeing this like giant Wonka, like Willy Wonka. He did the chocolate fountain, but instead it's red.
He says drink Thor's blood or something, right?
Will it make her stronger? Because drinking blood is probably not great for your digestion.
Well,
and so
obviously not, but I mean, like, if it's Loki telling you to do it, I imagine it will make her stronger. I wonder is it going to be like a journey for her to get back to the top, or is he just going to send her up in the next episode?
He'll probably send her up or something. You already compared it to Lord of the Rings just now.
It felt like it was trying to be Game of Thrones, but again, failed in that respect.
I do agree with the Blue-Eyed Samurai, because remember, she is ostracized a little bit because of her lineage. Same deal with Blue-Eyed Samurai. One of their parents was a white man,
right?
And so that's why they have blue eyes. Marriages were a big part of the pilot episode. Violence, travel, sword cutting people in half, like, and naked people. All of that you could put into both shows. However, with Blue-Eyed Samurai, like I said before, the story is there.
Times better.
Very, very
times
interesting.
Better than this. Yeah.
I will say though, when I was looking at the IMDb page, I think I found Zack Snyder's account, like his hidden account, the one that he just.
You think that he writes random reviews?
Yeah, I think I found his fake account, like, because he's put out 3. I'll start with the Twilight of the Gods. This is the reason why I think it's him. It's a brilliant take on Norse mythology and pretty accurate to its lore. Thor is unforgivably brutal, and Loki is cunning and brilliantly portrayed. The animation style is fresh and the best I've ever seen so far. Xelam Animations, behind Augie and the Cockroaches, created a new style of 2D animation, and it looks clean and beautiful. The world is immersive and gorgeous. The characters and story are fun and compelling. Voice acting is on point. The character of Sigrid, Leif, Thor, and Loki are given enough depth. Every other side character shines through the journey. Although 4 different directors were involved in the show, the pacing and the story is consistently good. Eric Carrasco's writing is a winner. The narrative is intricate and complicated. Can't wait for season 2. Does that not sound like it's like trying to checkmark every single like category to say this was great, everybody should love it?
Person knows a lot about the show. It reminds me a lot of Bull, who made some of the worst films of all time, but he rates his own movies, I think, on IMDb.
I mean, regardless of what you think of the show, that's just a funny review. But the other 2 are what really sell it. First of all, I happen to know, just based on the other talking points and the fact that they've made fun of each other, he's a big fan of The Boys, right?
Yeah.
And so on The Boys review that this person did, best superhero TV show. This is better than any TV show Marvel and DC has ever put out. Never seen such a perfectly cast lead villain and hero who have different layers to their personality, not for all age groups and definitely not for Disney lovers. Okay? That's the second one, but here's the third one, and it's the kicker. Superman and Lois. 2021, right? Garbage.
It's just ending this season. Wait, he didn't like it.
No. Listen, garbage. This show is a disgrace. Now think of who's writing this. If it's really Zack Snyder going after Superman and Lois, this show is a disgrace. Takes heavy inspiration from Man of Steel, but makes it more darker than BVS. Director makes one fan service by showing the car rescue scene without even knowing the real content from the comic book. Ratings are too low and viewers are too low. Just stop wasting money and cancel the show and make Superman exclusive to only the big screen. I think it's Zack Snyder, and I won't be convinced until this person comes out and says,
well, again, it's ending this season, so it seems like that person's getting their wish. I think that this is just below average. I'm going to be giving it a 4.5 out of 10.
Has a 7.4 on IMDb. It's definitely got people who like it. Zack Snyder fans, particularly. 83% audience score, 60% critic score. Metacritic has a 63%. AV Club loved it. Hollywood Reporter wasn't crazy about certain parts of it, the sex stuff that we talked about. Overall, you say you give it a 4.5 out of 10. Will you watch any more episodes?
No.
All right. Well, that's all we got. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.